right, let's get started, y'all. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, on TikTok, understand I am not really watching the stream. So if you want solid interaction, you're going to have to hop in the Substack and get the Google Meet. Hi, good morning. Now, keep in mind, men, this is for women. This is a bunch of feminine stuff. You may not want to stay, but if you do, you are welcome to do so. Just don't disrupt our conversation, okay? All right, thanks. Okay, let's get started. So right now, what do you see on the screen? Do you see the UNMASK training video?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. All right, let's go ahead and get started. All right, y'all, this is my first time using Google Meet for a group coaching session. So how do I remove this? I guess I can't. I'll figure that out later. All right, welcome everybody. So this is the UNMASK Series 1, Session 1. Let me open, if you have the playbook, I would suggest you open the UNMASK playbook. Now, the UNMASK playbook is actually going to be in the welcome email or in the Substack. If you all want to access it, it goes alongside with my book, Reciprocity Eludes Me. If you want access to any of this stuff, I suggest that you sign up. I believe you can go to the link in my bio. Okay. Let me pull mine up as well. In the meantime, Shar, how are you doing?
I am doing great. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. So tell me, have you done any unmasking this week?
No, I have not. To be honest, no.
Not even a little bit?
I did some reflecting on some stuff, and just some things came up that I needed clarity on.
Okay.
But I don't know if it was really like unmasking per se.
Okay. Well, if it was a way for you to think differently about what you've already been thinking about, you know what I mean? Like for unmasking, we're talking about this process, not just of removing like false narratives, we're removing facades that we may be wearing in front of others. Like that's what we're talking about. We're talking about unmasking. We're talking about changing our mindset and our perspective about certain things. So when you're unmasking, you're at least acknowledging. That would be first step, is acknowledgement. So do you think you acknowledged anything this week that might speak to a shift in mindset or a change in perspective or more authenticity?
Yeah, I realized that I was a mess the past couple weeks. Mm-hmm. And just trying to deal with some things, and in my mind, maybe I was putting the blame on somebody else, but I had to get clarity on it. It was like, okay, this is all me. This is on me, and things aren't happening the way I want them to happen because I'm not doing the work and the things that I need to do.
Right.
And I had to let that feeling of blaming somebody else for something that it was really on me.
Oh, well, I want to give you a clap for that because that's a big deal. You know what? That's called self-awareness, y'all.
Yeah.
Oh, everything is about self-awareness. Congratulations, girl. So you know what's going to happen is you're going to show up differently because now you have a different mindset about it. That is totally unmasking.
Yeah, and towards the beginning of the week is when I had to get the clarity, and now like then it seemed like towards Thursday and Friday it's like, okay, I just things just started moving and the energy just started moving in my favor, and I was like, okay, this is what I should be doing.
Yes. All right, so y'all on TikTok, what we're talking about is unmasking this week. So just a little backstory. I was asked to do an event. It was a cosplay healing theory event. So it was cosplay, right? No, I did not dress up in cosplay. I did wear masks. And I think that was the most impactful for my speech was that I walked up on stage with 3 masks on my face and I pulled them off layer by layer to explain what it looks like for us, specifically as Black women, specifically as women, and then just a human being, because we all do it in some way. We wear our professional mask, we wear our church mask, we wear our family mask, we wear our significant others mask, we might wear our mask with our friends, and it's exhausting. Personally, I used to wear those masks with every single one of those situations. Could you imagine a chameleon changing their colors in every environment? That was who I was, and it is exhausting. So I gave this speech, and as I was preparing, rehearsing the speech, researching, creating it, pulling it together, I realized that this was much bigger than just a speech. And here we are now. We have the group coaching here on the screen. I'm looking at them. So if you ever want to be a part of the actual group coaching part, then you will have to register and join the Unmasked series officially through the Sisters Unbothered Substack. And you should be able to get to my Substack through my bio, okay? And we'll be here on Saturdays at 11:30 Eastern Standard Time. And I also do live sessions on Thursdays at 7 p.m. 7 p.m. Not 7:30, 7. I got to remember to change the welcome email timing to make sure it all matches. Congruency, like we be talking about. So that's what we're doing here. You're welcome to stay and listen in. Let me see, because we don't have a lot of people in the chat. I mean, in the group session today. So I'm going to try and keep an eye on the chat. Okay, y'all. So feel free to throw questions, comments, as long as you're being sweet and kind and generous and sharing information for all of us, and keeping, oh, hey, Shar. And keeping all of the malice and judgment and just meanness out of the chat, because we are here to support each other. That is the whole intention, y'all. Okay. All right. So moving on. So this week, so what we're doing is the Unmasked series is going to be through the end of the year. And what we're doing is we're doing 7 phases. I might have to lump 2 together to make sure we finish in time. But we're doing 7 phases, and they're 4 weeks apiece. So we're in phase 1, week 1. And in this week, we're doing how we learn to wear the mask, the performance of survival. Because why do we create masks? We create them for survival. Like, for instance, Shar, you created that mask to avoid the confrontation of having to have that realization with yourself, y'all, because character development hurts. Becoming better within yourself. Self-awareness can hurt. I know when I first started going through the process of self-awareness, I was constantly miserable because I was seeing myself for who I really am and how other people were seeing me. I still cringe to this day, just from interactions last year of what I must have looked like to other people. And that will drive you crazy to think about that. It's scary, y'all. So what I would say is just keep that in mind, that is very uncomfortable. Transformation in general, in any way, right? I'm working on, if you all are on my YouTube channel, I'm working on my my weight loss and my entrepreneurship journey. Those are the 2 transitions that I'm working on this summer. And so I'm vlogging about that every day. And I'm discussing like the different ways that I see myself and the ways that I'm dealing with that and the habits that I'm putting into place to self-coach myself through that process. That's a part of unmasking, y'all, because I'll be honest with y'all. Sis wanted to wait till she felt comfortable in her weight to get in front of the camera. But what was I waiting for? I would have been waiting another 5 years before actually getting in front of the camera if I'd have done that, right? And then nobody would have been blessed in that process, not to mention messing with my blessings from the Lord because I was being disobedient. Okay, so that's what we're talking about here, is we're talking about wearing masks. Now, I will say this real quick. When I did the speech, the women that spoke out during the speech, their most common answer was exhaustion. We are exhausted. But like I said earlier, wearing all those different masks in different situations and pretending to be who people want us to be, that is exhausting. It is more exhausting to be someone else than to be yourself. But a lot of us, after doing my transformation circles last year, is that a lot of women don't know what that looks like, to be yourself. So if you don't even know who you are, then you don't really know what masks you're wearing, y'all. So tell me what y'all think about that. All of y'all that's in the chat on here, please let me know what you think. Shar, what do you think about that?
I feel you when you say the exhaustion part, because you're wearing all these masks along with all these different hats, and you're trying to be and do everything for everybody, and really not slowing down for yourself. Mm-hmm. So I really feel the exhausted part. And then sometimes you get exhausted. Like I said, with me, I was tired of my own shit. Excuse my language. Tired of my own BS, So I had to really sit with myself and say, okay, like, we really need to figure this out. You need to get yourself together, come up with a plan, and really just do the things that make you happy. And, everybody else's problems, they're their own problems. They're grown. You can give people advice. They still do what they want to do. And then they come back to you like, oh, I didn't take your advice, but now I need help with this. Now I need help with that. But no, if you would have listened to me the first time, we wouldn't be at this particular situation. And now you want me to help you. And that's exhausting. Yeah. Because when do I get the time for me if you keep coming back with all your problems?
That's right.
So I feel you on that exhausting. I had some exhausting moments this week and last week.
And what's interesting is that the women that responded exhausted, when I asked them to go a little bit deeper, because that's what we do as coaches, that's what we like, asking questions. And as we went deeper, y'all, it was usually people pleasing, right? Mm-hmm. Showing up for others, even if it's inconvenient to us, not saying no, wearing too many hats and managing too many roles when you really don't have to. This whole thing where I'll just do it myself. That was one of my masks, was I got this. I can do it all myself. I don't need nobody. Lies. Can I just say lies, y'all? It's lies. We were put here to have people. We were not created to be a one-woman tribe, okay? And so when you live your life that way, you are hindering your ability to move forward with that, y'all. I hindered my business, my ministry, and just my life in general by isolating myself from people. And I used being an introvert as an excuse. And I am, in fact, an introvert. But being an introvert doesn't mean isolating. It means you recharge by being alone. When you're an extrovert, you need people to recharge. But when you're an introvert, people drain you. So you have to prioritize spending time alone. But that doesn't mean isolating yourself from other people. I had to learn that so that I can coach others properly. What do you think about that, Shar? You just made a face when I said that.
Because I think we just had this conversation, or you texted me something and you said, I think this was a couple weeks ago, we were talking and I said, I just don't feel like being outside, being bothered with people or something. Kind of like I just was going to stay in my own little bubble when I was an introvert. And I think you said something like there's no growth in being in your own bubble. And I really took that and was like, she's absolutely right. Did I create this bubble in this safe space for myself? And then am I allowing it to stifle me? Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, I don't want to go out in the world because of the political climate. I don't want to go out in the world because what if I get sick or something happens to me, And then, so I created my safe space, which is my house. So, with my garden and my office, all these things that I love, and they're safe. But then sometimes we can have a safe space and it can suffocate us.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then that's when I had the clarity, this week where it's like, okay, I do need to start getting out. Even if it's just to the library, to this place, to that, even though it's like, okay, I really would rather be home, but I can't meet people just sitting in a house, build true connections. Yeah, right. You can meet people online, but you're not building a true connection.
Right.
And sometimes you do want to feel maybe someone else's energy if you align with that person, like, hey, I just want to be around you. I just want to be around life and people. And then, then you can go back to your safe space.
Yeah, absolutely. And having that safe space is vital. But I think even with like the pandemic, I think that's what made it worse for all of us, y'all. Mm-hmm. It gave us the ability to do it without being judged, right?
Right.
That was one of my masks when I had those 3 masks on. The very first one I took off was the COVID mask. And I talked about how that mask actually, even though the situation was scary, it gave me comfort because I already was wanting to be okay with removing myself from people up without being held accountable for it. And wearing that COVID mask, I remember the first time I went out, y'all, after we went on lockdown, and I just took a scarf. It had a scarf wrapped around my face because I hadn't bought COVID masks yet. And I just felt so cozy and comfortable. And now it makes sense why I used to love living in the Maryland, D.C. area. And when the cold weather, I could wrap my scarf around my face. I don't have to do the fake smile because I am a fake smiler. It's a habit that I hate that I do. And I don't have to try to do small talk. For me personally, unless it's business related or ministry related, small talk is like teeth grinding for me, like scratching your nails on the chalkboard. It's so difficult and so to me unnecessary. But I understand that you have to do that in order to see who your people are. Because how many of y'all know that you can talk to somebody for a good 5 minutes? It don't even take that long sometimes, and you already kind of know where their heart is, who they are. Can you rock with them? You already get a feel of their energy. Granted, it's a little unfair to say that first impressions should determine whether you allow that person to stick around, but sometimes it can really be that easy. So thoughts on that, y'all? What do you think? What do you think, Shar? Have you experienced that?
As far as meeting someone, well, you know what? Yeah, because I don't know, first impression, they do say, first impressions, but you don't know if that person just is having an off day.
Yeah, that's true.
They could have just could have just received bad news or going through something right now, and they're coming across your path. Maybe it took them, a lot just to get out the house. So then if you judge and say, oh, look at that person, why didn't she do this? Why didn't she do that? Because I'm gonna be honest, I was a very judgmental person. Like I was a very judgmental person. I would see women like, oh, they're coming out the house looking like that. Oh, well, they don't have their hair done, they ain't got this done. Oh my God, But when my son passed away and I started leaving out the house any old way because it was like, I'm just happy to get out the house. Don't expect much from me. If I'm gonna have these weird little pajama bottoms on, that's what I'm wearing today because it took me a lot just to get out the house.
Yeah.
So I realized that I was a very judgmental person because, I didn't realize or understand what people were going through at the time.
Right.
I can't judge what somebody's going through if they're going through a heartache or grief, or their son might have just died yesterday and now they got to go to Walmart and get groceries. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you don't know when now meet me a year from that, I'm a different person.
Yeah.
So it's either you pass that judgment and don't get to know that person, or you stick around for maybe, a couple more weeks or whatever, a couple more conversations, and then, really get to know them.
Right. And I agree with you. We aren't supposed to judge a book by its cover. Maybe it's just me and maybe a spirit of discernment, but I think you can also get a feel for someone's energy and their heart. Like, I'm not talking about judging their appearance specifically. I'm talking about how you talk to people, how you talk, do you look them in the eye, right? If you don't look somebody in the eye, they don't feel trustworthy. Does that make sense?
Oh,
it's
yeah,
like definitely. Being hidden. I remember I used to be a restaurant manager in downtown DC, 2 blocks from the White House. Y'all probably know the restaurant. Very historic, very well known. And I was interviewing this young man, young Black male, but he kept looking past me or behind me or not looking in my face. And I felt very uncomfortable about hiring this person because I was like, this person doesn't seem very trustworthy. They're like, well, what are you running from? Is that what's happening? You running from somebody? You expected somebody to come bust through the door? Like, tell me, Don't just sit here and just like be this person that's just like aloof to the situation. You're asking me for a job.
Right.
And like personally, if I interact with somebody and I feel like off the jump, I'm picking up bad vibes, untrustworthy vibes, you might hurt me vibes, I am more prone to not continue to engage. Right. So I think for me, but you're right. I used to be the same way. I still catch myself. I saw a young lady in Publix this morning. I had to stop myself real quick because baby girl, she was in her pajamas, like a onesie, shorts, boobs out pajamas. And I was like, okay, girl, put some clothes on, baby. I wanted to go give her a hug and ask her to put some clothes on. I was like, dog, I'm getting old. I'm getting old. I'm starting to act like them old folks, some old church ladies. But I just really was like, why she come out looking like that? Because I saw, I guess it was a father and a son, two white males, and they looked at her, and the way they looked at her, I wanted to fight because I was like, man,
yeah,
you know what I mean? And it hurt my heart. And someone will judge you based off of that. And I remember hearing in the past, and I've said it to my girls, you never know who you're going to encounter. So if you go out looking crazy and acting stank, you could shoo away your blessing. Again, but we should not be judging each other by appearance. So all of us are wearing masks. For instance, at the event that I was speaking at, after everything was said and done, I'd done my session and other people had went and we were almost done with the event. I spoke about 2020 and how I had actually reached my bottom with my battle with depression. Battles I didn't even know I was having, y'all. I come from the background of just go pray it off. Like I had no idea that that's what I was battling with. But I had gotten so low that I was considering no longer being here for my babies. I have 4 daughters and now I have a grandson. Had I took my life then, I wouldn't have been here for the beauty of being a grandparent. But I shared that right in the room. And one of the ladies afterwards came up to me, pulled up her sleeve and showed me scars. She also was struggling during that time, but she actually tried. And now here she is today, showing her scars, giving me her card where she's written some books and she's out there hoping to make a difference in people's lives. And that's what I'm talking about here. We all are going through pretty much similar things, same things. We're all masking for the same reasons. We all really just want to be seen and heard. We all really want to love. We genuinely do want to love ourselves. I just don't think we realize it, articulate it that way. You know what I mean? So when we're going back to the playbook here, we're talking about awakening to this understanding, 1, of yourself, self-awareness, and then 2, of where your faith resides. Or if your faith is in the world and the world is constantly changing and constantly telling you to be somebody different and constantly giving you expectations that you absolutely can't meet consistently, then you're masking because you're having to figure out how to survive in that type of performance on a daily basis, which is 1, exhausting, and 2, impossible because we will never, ever fully meet society standards. Why? That will require perfection, y'all. And the people you think actually are perfect, I guarantee you underneath the facade, they are not. From inside out, there is not perfection there. It is a divine trait. It is not a human trait. And yet society tells us to aim to be perfect. So what do you think about that? Thoughts?
Me?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I definitely agree with you on that. Like when my son passed away, and then when I started back working, they knew that he passed away. I had explained the situation, but they didn't know how deep of a depression I was in. I would cry on my way to work, wipe my face off, going, hey, good morning, everybody. I would cry on my lunch break, go in the car and cry on my lunch break, come back, hey, you guys have a good lunch, and get in the car, go home and cry, and then get home and be like, "Woo, hey guys, let's have dinner." Like nothing happened. All the while, it was just going through the mundane of just trying to survive. So that was a mask that I was wearing. And everybody thought, oh, you're taking this really well. You're taking this grief really well, but you don't know what I was going through at night, what I'm going through driving in a car and, in my own thoughts. So it is taking off that mask. And if I had taken off that mask and maybe asked for a little more support from my friends and family, instead of making it seem like, okay, everything's okay, I'm fine, no, don't come over, don't help, I don't want you doing this, because I really isolated myself, But if I just would have took that mask off and said, yeah, I am hurting, I need some help, I need support, I need somebody to come do these dishes, I need this, I need that done, then maybe my healing would have started sooner. I wouldn't have spent so many years in that deep depression. I would have spent that time just being around friends and family and really just, taking off that mask and saying, okay, I need help, I need support, and I'm not fine, I'm not okay,
Yeah, but you know what? I think it's interesting because I'm going to share my screen again. In this week's training, so y'all, if you join the Substack, then you will have access to the training videos that we release every week, as well as the playbook, like we mentioned, and then also any handouts. Like I provided a worksheet for this week to go with everything. I forgot to send out the affirmation sheet on Friday, but I will make sure to do that next week. So yeah, joining the Sisters Unbothered Substack. Oh, and the podcast released a new episode this week as well. So those new episodes will be coming on Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. Hopefully I can get Shar here, my client / best friend, to hop on somebody's podcast with me and share her story. But I want you all to see what I'm looking at right now when we're talking about what a mask is. And you all cannot see this. So I will make sure to put the link so that you all can see this training video, or you can go to my YouTube. It's right there. So when it says, what is a mask? The mask is the false self we perform to stay safe, accepted, or unseen. And then we have some examples of what masks are, and that would be people pleasing, perfectionism, silence, keeping our mouths quiet, to avoid conflict. Char's feeling that one, y'all.
I feel like you reading me all the way through on that little slide.
Overachievement, which is definitely for me, because honey, last year I was on a
Yes, you were.
Man, when I tell
you were making me exhausted.
Oh my gosh. Hyper independence, basically not asking for help, which is also something I've had to deal with. These are just a few of them, y'all. These are just a few of them. And let me see here if I can change the next one. Okay, this is what I wanted to pinpoint on. So when we're talking about society, y'all, I want y'all to think, I've done 2 podcasts talking about this book because it was so impactful for me. It is Melissa Harris Perry's book, Sister Citizen. And it does lean more towards the stereotypes that our political climate places upon Black women. However, I think that these stereotypes are across the board in any industry, whether it be the marketing industry or entertainment and media. I think that Black women are seen this way, period. Unfortunately, I even think that our community itself still kind of sees Black women in this way, even though I do think that Black men are becoming more aware of everything that's being put on us to require us to show up as these women that we are expected to be. So based off of her book, she talks about this concept of a crooked room. Okay. And what happens is I can't remember where it was that they did an experiment, and they put people in a crooked room. Majority of the people shifted their bodies to accommodate the crooked room, so they were not standing up straight. A very small amount of people was able to stand upright, find their upright in the crooked room. So picture all of the furniture, the decor, everything is crooked. Can you figure out your way to stand up straight in a room that's crooked like this, distorted? It sounds hard, but I feel like if you're paying attention to your body and not the external surroundings, then you would figure out how to stand straight while everything else seems distorted and crooked. And that's how society is, for specifically for Black women. And I would say also for other women of color, women of marginalized communities. We have certain expectations or stereotypes, right? Like, for instance, let's just say, okay, I am half Asian, half Filipina, but I don't have a lived experience as an Asian woman. But I would imagine that you are expected to be beautiful, because, you know, Asian women are expected to be exotic and beautiful. A lot of them, from my understanding, aim to lighten their skin so that they can assimilate better and be more beautiful. And then also you're expected to be smarter, right? You're expected to have more of a mind of brilliance and intelligence, and you're expected to do well, basically, to make money, not to be poor. But if you're a Black woman in this country, our society, our culture, you are expected, one, to give more and require less. Okay. The three areas that she specifically pinpointed on is the mammy, the Jezebel, and the strong Black woman. And baby, when I tell you, after this past election cycle, we have seen what people really think about the strong Black woman. I'm gonna just throw that out there. 92.
Mm-hmm.
Are we still catching flack for not being out there? Actually, in these most recent protests, I have seen some of us out there. And I saw somebody comment on it. And some people are saying, you know, when is enough is enough. We know eventually we're going to have to get back in the fight. But the absence of the strong Black woman is definitely being noticed. Okay. Also, that mammy complex that we have to give without requiring it back in return. Do for everyone else, serve, and not require that we have receive what we need in return. And that can be for women in general, obviously, right? Gender roles, which is also societal and cultural. So all of these things and factors play into us wearing a mask. It just is what it is. It's the society that we live in. Can I tell y'all that is not God's intention for us? It was not his intention for us to have to walk around and live in bits and pieces here and there. It's for us to, Dr. Cindy Trim calls it congruency in her 40-day soul fast, which I do intend on doing at the end of the year again. I try to do it at the end of the year to get ready for the new year, to go into the new year. It's very good. It's very good in a way, in taking inventory of where you are and where you want to go and how you're showing up in the world. Because how many of y'all know you have to show up differently in order to see life be different? Mm-hmm. Transformation only happens when you transform from the inside out. So just a little nugget for y'all this Saturday morning. But keep that in mind. We want to show up congruent. We want to show up the same, whether we're at home or in a professional environment or at church or on a stage. We want to be the same person. I'm still working on that. I hope that I'm closer to that than I was 5 years ago. Heck, 1 year ago. It's something I'm constantly working on. So I encourage you all to take that into consideration and just remember that we are standing in a crooked room. We are. But are you going to take the time to become self-aware enough, God-aware enough, and determined and intentional enough to stand up straight while everything else seems to be distorted around you? That goes back to paying attention to what's on the inside as opposed to everything happening on the outside. Any thoughts on that, Shard?
No, I'm just listening to everything. I don't have any. Yeah, and that was I never heard that story or read that book, so I'm going to add that to my list of things to read. By Melissa Harris with Melissa Harris
Perry.
Yeah, Melissa Harris Perry. So that is an interesting concept that you know. So it's like you're just trying to fit in. Oh, okay, thanks. Yeah, thanks for letting me know what it looks like. So it's like you're just trying to fit in to where you are.
Yeah.
And sometimes you want to fit in because you just don't want to be called out for anything.
Oh yeah.
You don't want to be noticed.
Yeah.
And that's another mask of, okay, let me just hide.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hiding, and maybe if I blend in, I won't be noticed. Maybe I won't be picked on. Maybe
Right.
some of us were picked on as children.
Yep.
We might have stood out differently or stood out from one way or another. And now we're hiding. And I know with me, I was hiding my pain, and I realized I will always go out with a hat and sweater on, even if it was like super hot. I would
What?
always have a hat and sweater on, and my sister, she calls it the Maud sweater. Like, remember? And then there's Maud or whatever. She's like, why are you always wearing that Maud sweater? Like, and then I
Wait,
would
was this when you were in Jersey or when you were in Florida?
both. What I realized was I was hiding.
Uh-huh.
I was
Yeah.
masking, like you said, I was hiding. I didn't want anyone, to see my pain. So if I just cover up and put a hat on and put this sweater on, put my head down and go about my day, no one would notice, that I'm actually, in all this pain.
Absolutely. And you know what the thing is? I used to do the same thing. I have been on this journey since my teens. So, y'all that do not know me, I was a teen mom. I had my first two daughters before I was 20 years old. My first oldest daughter is actually turning 30 next year, which means my high school graduation is next year because I had her at 17. And during those days, my family was so disappointed in me for derailing my future, that I developed a sense of self-hate, which is the very beginning of my book, Reciprocity Eludes Me, because that right there was enough to derail me from pursuing anything outside of just being a doormat, basically, right? For my kids and my spouse at the time, my family, any jobs that I held, any church that I went to, I basically would position myself because I didn't feel worthy. And so I had developed a habit of not looking people in their eyes. I would literally walk past somebody on the sidewalk and look down. If I met somebody that I felt like had any sense of authority at church, I would avoid eye contact. Like at my job, same thing. Same thing like Shar was saying about trying to hide herself under clothing. I would just try not to uh, bring people's eyes upon me and make awareness because I felt so low. And I couldn't even articulate it as self-hate, y'all, for a long time. Like when I finally went to therapy at Georgia State University, I was able to do therapy as a student. And this was in my 30s, early 30s. And it was then that I began to pinpoint this concept of self-hate and self-neglect. And I began to realize that I neglect myself by wearing all those masks.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't have to do the work, y'all. You don't have to do the work. And this is the thing. The way that the Holy Spirit gave it to me at the time, it was like this trash can. I think I write about this. And I just kept stuffing it in there, pushing it down, pushing it down, pushing it down in the trash can and put the top on it. And I'm assuming nobody can smell it. Nobody's ever going to know it's there. All you're going to see is this facade. But eventually that smell starts to seep out, y'all. Eventually the smell seeps out from under the lid if you don't empty the trash. And we do that with ourselves, with our emotions, with our disappointments, with our fears and our anxieties. If we have mental health or behavioral issues, pushing that down, trying to avoid looking at it and dealing with it, that is why it's so vital for us to focus from the inside out. Because eventually, people say my professional life doesn't affect my personal life. That is BS. Because eventually, one is going to seep into the other. That part, period, point blank. And I wanted to share this one with y'all too. This is another good one. This one is specifically for my professional ladies. Also, this conversation of how we're viewed, stereotypes, and why we feel like we have to mask ourselves and show up in a certain way. Y'all know what I'm talking about because I'm pretty sure most of y'all on here, and you too, Shar, are very familiar with code switching.
Oh,
Which
absolutely.
is a mask. Okay.
Absolutely. And you know what's funny? I actually started working when I was 14. My very first job was at Nutrisystem.
Okay.
And I would just like bag up the food and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the only Black person that worked there, you know, working after school or whatever, only Black person that worked there. But when a customer came in, it was like, hey, ma'am, how are you? And it's weird because ever since that first job, I have always had jobs where I was either the only Black person or one of very few. Especially very few Black women. This my most recent job that I left, I was telling you about it, that they didn't hire any Black people. And I would see the resumes coming through. So, you know, and then they had this event that they wanted me to attend. And this was right around when, you know, the election's going on. And I just didn't feel comfortable going. As the only Black female there. I don't know these people, you know, going to a different state that was a red state, even though I live in a red state. But like I said, I have my safe space, you know.
Right.
But going to a red state, going around people that are clearly MAGAs, because you know, you like you said, you get the vibe, you see the things they're doing, the things they're talking about without they say it without saying it. And I just did not feel comfortable going. And I had to let them know I'm not attending. You know, and I had to make that decision because, okay, am I going to be retaliated against because I'm not showing up to this mandatory, you know, event?
Yeah.
And I just told them, you know what? I don't feel comfortable and I'm not coming. And that's it. And I had to sit on it. You know, I had to sit on my decision.
Yeah.
You know, did I want to go there and be code switching? Oh, yeah. Everything's fine. No, I don't understand any policies. And no, the political climate is great. You know, you know, like, so and when you get in those situations, you just have to stand on your beliefs and your values. I didn't go. And I knew that it was going to be an issue as far as like, you know, it being mandatory and not showing up, but I just had to stand on what I felt was right. It was hard for me to make that decision because I knew how it would affect my career at that particular place from there on out. Right. But I also knew the anxiety it was giving me.
Right.
Just thinking about being there.
Right.
You know, traveling somewhere that I don't want to go, being around people all day and the next day was like a 3-day event, work event, being around people that I don't want to be around. Like, I probably would have had a whole heart attack. Just the amount of, like, literally the amount of anxiety that I was feeling. I had to talk about it with my husband. He's like, well, just don't go. You know, and I said, you know what? I'm not going to go. I let them know I'm not going. They asked why and questioning and this and this and that. And it is what it is.
So I'm curious, the coach in me, I want to go a little deeper for a second. When you made that decision to not go, before your husband said that to you, was it a consideration for you not to go?
When I first saw the email about the event, I was like, I'm not going.
Okay. So you already had it in your mind.
I already had it in my mind. I wasn't going. Okay. Already had it. I'm not going to, because I played everything like, okay, I know this, and how is it going to make me feel while I'm there?
Right.
What type of feeling am I going to have when I'm there? What type of feeling am I going to have flying there, traveling there by myself? Right. You know, to be around a bunch of, you know, people that don't value me.
Yeah.
You know, and don't care about what happens to me or my family or my grandkids. I couldn't go, you know, like you said, I couldn't go and just wear that mask. And that's what it would have been. A whole big behind mask.
It would have been a whole costume.
Right. A whole diving helmet. Like,
She was gonna show up as Sister Night, fully covered.
right. They're like, what is wrong with you? I don't feel safe.
I understand. And you know what the thing is, if it wasn't for the fact that I work remotely, so just a little update, y'all. I am actually leaving my job next month, and I'll be full-time entrepreneur, full-time ministry, and full-time graduate school student. Thank you, Shar.
Yay, yay.
But I am also in 2025 the only person of color, not just Black, but person of color on my team, in my department, in the back office. And I had hoped that they would hire somebody at least to keep in line with the one token, but they did
You
not.
were enough. You were it. You don't
Sure, because I was over there.
You
Look,
don't get two tokens.
Black, I really had submitted a proposal trying to do DEI initiatives and
I
everything
remember that.
4 years ago. So, you know, I completely understand that, but I was able to protect myself in a sense because I'm behind the screen, right? And my boss does not bring that kind of stuff up. He's very good about not putting us in those situations where we have to feel uncomfortable having those conversations. We don't bring up anything political, which is also in a way code switching and wearing a mask because you avoid that confrontation by staying silent. I'll give y'all another example. I was a Toastmaster. I had actually even became like president of my chapter. And what I realized is that I had accepted silencing my voice in order to maintain the peace, if that makes sense. But after the election, knowing who I was dealing with, where I live, I couldn't do it anymore. I didn't have one. I was like a lot of y'all, I was grieving. Like I grieved for a couple of months, not just spiritually, but like physically and mentally and emotionally grieving. And I couldn't put myself in that situation anymore. It's too draining. Sometimes sometimes you don't realize that you're wearing the mask. And so you don't realize it's pulling your energy. And sometimes you know that thing is draining the life out of you to show up that way. It's like living with somebody, a partner that you're like if you have to mask in front of your partner, I can't imagine what that feels like day in and day out, day after day, wearing a mask specifically for the person that you go to sleep and wake up with every day. Imagine what that's like.
And we're not just talking about makeup.
No,
we're not talking about no makeup.
No, or brushing your teeth before he smells your breath. No,
talking about makeup.
Listen, I've met women that don't go number 2 while their man is at home. They wait till they go to work. Like what?
What? No.
Like human bodily functions here. Like, yes, I'm gonna pass over sometimes. It's not on purpose. Yo, I gotta use the bathroom. Yo, don't go in the bathroom.
That's me. I give a warning. You go use the other one.
Some of us are living in that bondage. Why are you masking for the person you're supposed to be spending your life with?
Right.
Right? You have to choose to stand 10 toes down for you. And a lot of us aren't taught that, and we're not expected to do that. So you have to take the reins and you have to say, I'm not wearing this mask anymore. I'm done. Finito. Finished. Complete. No longer am I shielding who I am to the world. Now, if you think that if you begin to unmask and you realize that you are, which I was, I'll be honest with y'all, when you realize you are petty McFetty and that you are selfish and arrogant in every way, when you are prideful, when you start seeing that stuff about yourself, it hurt, girl. But that's good that you're seeing it, because now you can do the work on yourself, within yourself, not to fix yourself, but to improve yourself, to heal yourself. Because most of the time when we're like that, those are trauma responses, right? Like personally, I've dealt with a lot of rejection in my life and I've been bullied. So those were trauma responses for me to show up in a way where I felt like I had some type of control over people and situations. Manipulation, right? Trying to use boundaries to make people do what I want them to do. That's why I'm always telling y'all, boundaries are for you. They're not for the other person. So just learning stuff like that and going through my own growth journey and healing journey. And so I encourage you all to do the same thing, because unmasking, one, is going to show you who you really are. And two, it's going to require you to do the work to be able to show up authentically. And showing up authentically means that people are going to have to start treating you the way that you treat yourself. We tell people how to treat us, right? So if we continue wearing that mask, they're going to accept the mask. Now, sometimes people are going to be disgruntled when you take that joint off and really show up who you really are. And that's just part of the process, y'all. It's all a process. So it's been an hour. I started a little bit late, but any other things you want to talk about, Shar, before we hop off?
No, well, actually, yes.
Okay.
When you mentioned that, when you take that mask off finally, and now the people around you are looking at you like, why are you acting funny? No, I'm not acting funny. Now this is the true me, because like you said, before I might have tried to set boundaries for you, but you can't control what people do.
Right.
You know, do or say. All you can do is set the boundary for you. So now it's like, no, now I have this boundary. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. I'm saying no. You know, and then when you finally set that boundary, take that mask off and say, okay, enough is enough. Those around you, the ones that truly care about you, will say, okay, I'm glad that you've awakened, you know. But those that don't mean well for you, they're the ones that's like, oh, why are you acting funny? Oh, now I'm acting funny because I can't do something for you, because I'm saying no. You know, so just beware of those type of people that's around you once you start unmasking and becoming your true self.
Absolutely. And you know what? That's a surefire way to figure out who's supposed to be in your inner circle and who is not. And I learned that the hard way, right? Even if it's your family, your oldest friend, yo, do they deserve to be in the inner circle? You got to guard that thing with tenacity, because who you keep around you the closest, those are the people who are either going to push you into your purpose or keep you out of it. So keep that in mind, y'all, as y'all picking y'all significant others, because it makes a difference.
Look, you need a
significant other. That's a problem.
Yeah. Do it as a significant other questionnaire. Like, what do we match? Do we align? Did you go to therapy? Did you got childhood issues with your mom, your dad? Like, have you been grieving? Did you lose people? Really dig deep and find out about these men.
Yeah.
You know, don't just go with somebody because they look good and they buy you flowers.
Yeah.
You know, have you done the work? Have you done the healing?
Yeah, absolutely.
What is your relationship with yourself, with your family, with your children? If you know what I mean, depending on your age, you know?
Yeah. Do you understand yourself? I think that's a very big one. And I say that because I didn't realize my makeup when I went into any marriage, honestly. And the truth is that I am, in fact, very much so textbook definition of an introvert. People drain me. I love being alone, and I don't like being interrupted when I'm recharging. And so that causes me to get annoyed easily. It causes me to spew out when I should not. That's the unhealed me. When I retaliate in petty ways and say things that are not necessarily nice in the moment to protect my space. And so these are things that I had to learn about myself so that I can make life easier for my significant other, right? Or just my friends or people around me. For instance, Shar is one of my closest friends, and we had to go through this process of considering each other. Okay, do you have the bandwidth for me to talk to you about something? Like figuring out, right? You know what I mean? I figured out after a while that she doesn't like to talk after a certain time at night. And it's funny because I'm like that now too. So I wouldn't even dare reach out to her at like 9 o'clock unless it was like emergency, right? So it's like once you do the work within yourself, then it's easier to be able to show up and to respect others' space and their personality, as well as have yours be respected, if that makes sense. But you can't do that until you stop masking.
Right.
I think that's a good place to leave it. Anything
Yes.
else before we hop off?
No, I really enjoyed this session
Oh,
and I'm excited for the next one.
yay. All right. Well, week 2 will start getting released out on Monday. I will send out the Sunday pre-week email. All of this is coming through Substack, y'all. Y'all have to register on the Substack. I will make sure to put the link so that you all can sign up for the Unmasked series and get the welcome email with all of the links and information. Saturdays, 11:30 will be on here, and I'll keep doing it like this for now. Maybe I'll add the Substack Live. We'll see. I don't think so because we do that on Thursday nights. So we'll continue to do it here. But if you want to have direct coaching conversation, you want to get into the Google Meet session, okay? I'm going to be doing this. I might extend it beyond the first month. We'll see what happens. I just really want to help people, but I also need to consider that I am getting ready to be full-time entrepreneur and minister. So I need to consider, I need cash flow too, y'all. All right. Okay. Well, that's it. Y'all have a great, yes, girl. Y'all have a great Saturday, great weekend, and I will see y'all next week. Bye.